Hey guys, it's Hannah and welcome back to the Dyslexic Reader and welcome to my January 2018 wrap up. The first book I read this year was The Dinner by Herman Koch. I want to pronounce that, I'm not sure. This was a literary fiction book and it was weird. It was basically a dinner and it goes through like appetizers and starters and main course. It's like split up like that and it's between two couples and they both have teenage sons who have been connected in some morally bad thing. We don't know a lot going into it. I'm trying not to spoil it for anyone, but the two teenage sons are connected in something they maybe shouldn't have done, and over the dinner it's just a discussion of what happened and how it got to that point and what needs to be done and who's responsible and that kind of thing. And it was a very interesting character study. It was very literary fiction. Like every little morsel of food was described in a real airy-fairy way, so if that's not your thing, this mightn't be for you. It's not really my thing, but I still really enjoyed the intrigue of it. We don't even find out what actually happened. We don't have any idea what's happened until halfway through the book, and I was starting to get to the point where I was like, if I don't find out soon, like, I'm not interested anymore. But it did come around, and definitely the latter half of the book was much better. I think the first half, even though it was a build-up, could have been edited a bit. You know, we could have done with a bit less of like how the grapes tasted. But that's just my personal opinion on what I like. But I thought this was pretty good and I gave it 3 stars. The next book I read was Queen of Thieves, and it was a true story of Frederica Molderbaum, who I had never heard of before but is such an amazing character. She was one of the largest gang leaders in New York in, I believe, the mid to late 1800s. I think it was like 1850 something to 1880 something. She was a gang leader in New York City, and she was a German Jewish immigrant, and it was just her story about how she got started and all about how she was able to play the system to not get caught and stuff, and it was very interesting. I will say that the writing wasn't great. It was like reading a college paper, but the story was so interesting for me, it carried it. But I only gave it 2 stars because the writing was so bad. Like, it was hard to get over, but I would love to see what a great writer or even like a TV show or anything about her, because I have never heard of her before and her story was so interesting to me. The third book I read was The Romanov Prophecy by Steve Berry. This was just mass paperback kind of thriller mystery type thing. It was pretty good. It's set in Russia, and Putin's government has fallen and they've decided that they want to reinstate a Tsar. So they put together a Tsarist commission who is going to try and find who's the most like eligible, like from bloodline, and like work it out. But our main character is an American lawyer who is involved with the Tsarist commission and this whole thing, and he starts getting chased and followed and we don't know why, and he's found out something that he shouldn't know, and then he goes on like an across the world adventure trying to find like the true heir to, I guess, the throne of Russia. And it was just really interesting. It wasn't great, but the pacing was good, the story was quite interesting, and I found it incredibly entertaining, so I gave it 4 stars. My next read of the year was Tunnels, with its super shiny cover. This was a bit of a letdown. I gave it 3 stars, and it was 4 or 5 stars right up until the end. And I was sitting reading it and I said to my boyfriend, this isn't going to end. And he was like, what do you mean? And I was like, they can't possibly, there's only like 20 pages left and it can't wrap up. And it didn't. It left on a cliffhanger. And it is a series, so I kind of get it. They want you to buy the next one, but at the same time, like, it was an utter cliffhanger. It wasn't like open or we didn't get all the answers or they went and searched something else. It was literally like, we're saving this person. And then it ended. Like, we didn't get to see, like, did they save them? Or are they still, like, it was a complete cliffhanger, and that really, really annoyed me. But the premise of this book was great. It was about a family and they're all really, really different. But the dad and son share sort of one interest, and that is digging tunnels under London where they live and finding historical artifacts. And the father starts to notice there's like weird guys hanging around. They all kind of look the same and a bit weird, and they're sort of just hanging around where they live and they think it's a bit odd. and as soon as he starts looking into this, he disappears, and it's up to his son and his friend to go looking for him and what they discover in the tunnels. And it was really, really good up until the end. My library does have the second book, but only on CD, so I'm going to have to get it and listen to it in the car, because that's the only CD player I have. Or maybe like on the PlayStation and listen to it through the TV or something. But if number 2 ends in another cliffhanger, I'm not going looking like the other 6 in the series, because I got this for like 20p in a charity shop and I'm not that fussed. My final read of the year really did fulfill my New Year's goal to read less books but longer books. And that was 11/22/63 by Stephen King. It is well over 1,000 pages. I think it's like 1,100 or something, this particular edition, and I really enjoyed this. This is my first ever Stephen King novel. I'm not a fan of horror. It's more squeamishness than scaredness. I was the child who like fell and cut their knee and looked at it and then just turned the other way and vomited. I am very squeamish. I have grown out of it as an adult, but I still would get with graphic things like quite creeped out. So it's not even like the scary aspect, but it's the gross aspect of horror that I find hard to deal with. And so I had never picked up Stephen King because I thought all of it was horror. But this is actually a sci-fi book. It is about time travel. We follow our main character Jake, who a friend has discovered they call it a rabbit hole to the past, but they can only go to 1958 every time. It takes them right back to the exact same time on the exact same date every time you go through it, and every time you come back, no matter how long you've been in the past, it's always only 2 minutes later, which I thought was quite an interesting concept. And so his friend goes through and tries to live in the past until Kennedy's assassination so he can stop it, but he gets ill and he knows he's not going to live until it, so he has to come back and get our main character Jake to go into the rabbit hole and try to live in the past for the 4 or 5 years until the attempt on assassinate President Kennedy, and he has to try and stop Oswald. And of course he makes friends and things change and the past doesn't want to be changed and it tries to stop him, and it's just a good sci-fi. I gave it 4 stars, and that's because the middle, for me, was a bit waffly. I don't really like all this, like, waffly. I'm a plot girl, I'm not a character girl, and I thought that start and end were really, really strong, and it would have been a 5-star for me, but yeah, the middle, there was just some bits I found skimmering. I didn't really care. I cared about, like, the secondary character, but there was, like, tertiary characters, and I didn't really care very much, but I thought it was really well written. I thought the pacing, apart from the wee slow bit in the middle, was very good. I thought it was an interesting concept, and I thought that it was thought through. Like, it made sense. Obviously, every book dealing with time travel does it slightly differently. There's different rules and things, and I thought how this book done it was like quite unique and not plausible, but there was no plot holes in it. It was well thought out, and I thoroughly enjoyed my first Stephen King. I have read 5 books this month, which I am thoroughly pleased with, and I think I am keeping up with my New Year's resolutions. I wanted to focus on more middle grade, and I got 1 middle grade done this month, so that's still pretty good. And I wanted to feature longer books, which I obviously did with Stephen King, but also apart from, I think, The Dinner, which was 200 and something pages, I think they all were 400 plus. This was obviously 1,000 plus, and I read over like 2,500 pages this month, and that's kind of what I'm trying to go on, more than like a book school. I do have a book school, it's 50 books for the year, but I am trying to, with last year I read 36,000 pages, but it was 130 books, so a lot of them were obviously shorter books, so I'm going to try and match my page goal from last year with 36,000, but to read less books, if you know what I mean, because I'm trying to make it longer. So I think we're going well towards this goal. I might be reading more this month because, as some of you will know, I'm going on holiday tomorrow, so I'm filming this on the 22nd, although I'm not posting it to the end of the month. So there's a possibility I might get another book read. I'm going to take the Romanovs with me on holiday, which is a non-fiction book about the 300 odd years that the Romanovs ruled Russia. So I might get a good chunk of that done, but either way, it'll be in my February wrap up. Thanks for watching today. I hope you're all happy, I hope you're all healthy, and hopefully I'll see you in my next video. Goodbye!